Today we will cover how to measure with a protractor. So this tool right here is my protractor. Before I start, first and foremost, make sure your protractor is not upside down. For example, you're going to notice here all my numbers are written backwards. So it's probably upside down. Flip it over. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and jump to problem number 1. To measure an angle, you have this hole right here. You want that hole to line up to the vertex. You want the vertex to be in the middle of that hole. Also, notice you will have this black line to the left and to the right of that hole. You use that black line to match up your angle. You want one of those two black lines to go perfectly on top of one side of one ray of the angle. So right now my black line's on top of the bottom ray. And then my job is to figure out where is my other ray pointing. Sometimes your rays are going to be too short for your protractor, or your protractor is too big. In those cases, my advice is to go ahead and extend your ray, make it longer. We can do this because we learned previously that rays go infinitely long on one side. They keep going forever, so you can make that longer. So going back to my protractor, hole on the vertex, and that black line, this black line, on top of the bottom ray. Then I look at where does my other ray go. Now there are two numbers, the inside number and the outside number. The way you can tell which one you're using is there's two tricks for this. I'm using the right side of the protractor, meaning my black line. I'm using the right black line, so I use the inside numbers. Or the other way, this ray that I'm on top of should be pointing at 0. And when you look at your numbers, 30, 20, 10, 0 is on the inside. Outside goes 150, 160, 170, 180. The 0 is on the inside. That tells me to use my inside numbers. So on my inside numbers, I'm following until I see where my ray hit. It looks like my ray hit at 30 degrees. So that's 30 degrees. Let's try another one. Problem number 3. So I can either line up my protractor this way with my black line touching, going on top of this ray, or I can turn it around and go this way with my black line on top of the other ray. If I were to go this way, notice the other ray I'm looking at is way too short. I don't even know where the arrow is supposed to be pointing over here. So again, my advice, go ahead and make that ray longer. After I extend that ray, I can now go back and figure out hole in the vertex, the black line on top of the other ray, and then I read where does my other ray go. And then there's the issue of inside outside again. And for some people, turning your protractor sideways or upside down, they forget which one's the left side, this is left, and which one was the right side, this is the right side. So if you forget or get confused on which side's which, when it comes to telling inside and outside, go with the other method. The ray that I'm on top of is pointing at 0. If I look at my numbers, outside goes 30, 20, 10, 0. Inside goes 150, 160, 170, 180. So 0 is on the outside. That tells me to use the outside numbers. I'm moving along the outside and see where my line hits. Notice my marker's kind of thick, so it's hard to tell if I'm at 139, 139.5, 140, we don't know. I can also be slightly off on my hole if I were to move this ever so slightly. Now it looks like I'm at 140. And again, moving it ever so slightly, my hole is still on the vertex. It looks like my black line is still on top of that ray. Now it looks like I'm at 140, 141, 142 kind of. So because we are measuring by hand, it's hard to get that hole, that vertex perfectly in the center of that hole, or to get that black line perfectly on top of that ray. You're going to be off by a bit, and that's fine. It's not uncommon for you to be off by as much as even 5 degrees, depending on how well you match up this hole and this black line, and how well you drew this line when you extended it. So again, going back to my outside numbers, it looks like I'm at about 140 degrees. Last thing I will go over is when we have angles, we have names and classification. I covered this in my previous notes. When we are naming angles, you can use the 3 letters that make up that angle. So we can call this angle YRT. Or we can go backwards and say this is angle TRY. Or we can use the 1 letter, angle R. Classification is acute, right, obtuse, or straight. Meaning, is it less than 90, exactly 90, more than 90, or exactly 180? This is between 90 and 180 that makes it obtuse. So there you have measuring angles, naming them, and classifying them.